Hello and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us. I'm thinking about soybeans, Brian, and you know what? The pre-emerge is starting to run out of gas. We need some post-emerge residual options. We'll talk about those today.
In any crop that you've got, one of the most important things is making sure it has ample fertility all the way through the growing season. How are you going to know? Well, the way you know is with plant tissue analysis. We want to talk about how to do that and what to look for on today's show.
Well, one plant that we don't need to take a leaf analysis on is our weed of the week. We'll show you how to stop this weed later in the show. But first, here's our farm basics.
Do you want perfectly conditioned grain, but are worried about the cost to upgrade your bins? With the Grain Temp Guard from Farm Shop MFG, the ideal solution costs less than you think. Preventing your stored grain from spoilage and over-drying can save your farm thousands of dollars in grain loss each year. And you can outfit your existing bin system for as little as a few $100s, not thousands like you might expect. Learn more about how to get the low-cost Grain Temp Guard system on your bins at farmshopmfg.com.
Whether you're a farmer, a custom applicator, or just a gardener or spraying around your house, one of the most important things that you can do is clean your spray tank out when you get done with whatever spraying you have going on. So we're going to talk about that during our Farm Basics time today.
It's one of those times of year where we're going between the pre-emerge applications and the post-emerge applications, or from one crop to the other, or from spraying the lawn to spraying the garden, and you're using different products. If you've got something that's hung up somewhere in your spray system, whether it's in that tank, in the lines, in the nozzle, in a filter, it's a big problem. So we've got to focus on getting those cleaned out, and the best time to do it is right after you're done spraying, when it's still in liquid form. What happens so often is we see sprayers left in the sun, and then it quickly dries and leaves a film on the inside of the tank that's really tough to get off.
Yep, so when you get done with the spraying, if you can flush everything out right then, that's great. Flush it out with water a couple times. We would encourage you to use a good tank cleaner as well. The tank cleaner is typically going to raise the pH of that solution, that water, whatever is in there, and that will hopefully liquefy everything, hopefully keep it in solution long enough to get it out of the spray boom. But we would just encourage you to take a look at the label, talk to your agronomist about what specific products could be used, because sometimes it might be ammonia, sometimes it might be a tank cleaner, sometimes there are different products that you could use to do the very best job of cleaning out your spray tank.
The other thing to keep in mind, if you're mixing things in spray water, in spray solution, using a compatibility agent often helps keep products in suspension and not sticking on the side of the tank. We use a product called Convert with many of the tank mix combinations that we use, and we found the tank cleanout gets to be much easier after using that.
One last thing that I wanted to throw in is when you have a poly tank, just understand that there's product that can get inside the pores in that poly. So sometimes you have to let the water in the tank cleaner actually sit for a few hours, maybe even overnight, to hopefully suck more of that stuff out of the pores in the poly tank. So just something for you to keep in mind.
Well, and also if you're mixing up a batch to spray tomorrow, that's not normally a good idea, because the product that you just mixed up could pull some of those things out of those pores and create some issues in your field. So be cautious about that.
So if you want to put water in the night before, fine, but put the actual herbicide in just as you're about to go out to the field.
All right, one last thing. If you're using a sprayer that has a boom, many times at the end of the boom, there's a little dead space there, and what we see is buildup of gunk and the last 18 things that you've sprayed. So we would suggest putting something like Express End Cap on the end so you can quickly flush out those booms. They've also got a new model now with a ball valve that I really like to just quickly turn that valve, boom, you can flush out the end, and you've got a clean sprayer and you're ready to go.
Well, once again, regardless of why you're spraying, just understand that one of the most important things is cleaning that sprayer out when you get done.
Well, one of the things you might be out spraying for is our weed of the week. We'll show you how to stop this weed later in the show.
Where we have run the Soil Warrior, we have harvested the best corn we have ever harvested in the history of Wrenwood Farms. Now, I'm kind of always wanting to push the envelope to see what else I can do to help enhance that emergence. Their ride is so much smoother. Their seed placement is even better. Where we had our best emergence and we've had our best yields was where we ran the Soil Warrior.
If you're looking to expand your farm's grain handling, you want everything to be fast and efficient. The Quick Belt from Norwood Sales is your all-around grain handling solution. Our conveyor-based system uses an 18-inch belt and a 10-inch tube, which minimizes seed damage while moving more than 10,000 bushels an hour. That's fast enough to fill a semi in 6 minutes. Plus, our hood is designed to gently direct the flow of grain straight down, keeping your crop in condition. Keep your grain and your farm moving with the Quick Belt from Norwood Sales.
Introducing the all-new Diamant Cornhead from Capello, USA. With a revolutionary design highly innovative for its class, we have painstakingly designed every component down to the smallest detail to maximize your harvest efficiency. This gives you unprecedented standards in operation and performance. For more information about this beast, available only in our new gray poly, call 855-CAPELLO or visit capellousa.com to find a dealer near you. Capello, wherever you are, we are.
Ideal for herbicide applications, the ultra-low drifts large air-inducted droplets were designed to eliminate driftable fines without sacrificing coverage. Its thick three-dimensional pattern creates multiple angles for the spray to cover the target. Hypro, helping you spray better.
Challenging field conditions often make harvest difficult. Can your cornhead handle it? The GTS X10 cornhead from Agra US is a rugged, cost-effective alternative to heavier, more traditional heads. Constructed of durable yet lightweight aluminum, the X10 puts less strain on your combine without losing harvest effectiveness. And it is 40% lighter than traditional heads, reducing field compaction in those less than ideal conditions. For more information, give us a call at 8334-AGRA US.
How much does your crop residue cost you? Over time, residue accumulates in your fields, building excess carbon levels and tying up your plant available nitrogen. Residue also traps P, K, and micros and can take years to naturally become available to your crops. This is because soil lacks the diverse microbial life needed to break it all down. With Decomp, you can naturally restore life to your soil and allow the release of valuable crop fertility. Learn more about Decomp at eggbio.solutions.
When it comes to soybean weed control, the market segment that has grown the most in the last few years has been the post-emerge residual control options, especially the Group 15s. When I think of Group 15s, what I'm thinking of is Warrant, Dual, Zidua, Outlook, those kind of products.
We also think about some other products that we've been using in this market for a number of years as well, like the ALS type products, things like Pursuit, for example, or we look at other products like PPOs. We've been using FlexStar and Cadet for many years too. So there's quite a few different things that are coming together now as combination products as well.
So when we talk about the combinations, the two most popular ones are Warrant Ultra, that's got Warrant Group 15, along with FlexStar, that PPO chemistry, or you could go to FMC's basic version of the same type of thing, where we've got Anthem Max, and that gives you Zidua Group 15 along with Cadet, the other PPO.
Don't get us wrong, we still want to start with that good pre-emerge program down, but adding some more residual in crop can give a pretty nice return on investment. But one of the big keys here is you're going to have to look at what the cost of those programs is.
Fortunately, these products are pretty inexpensive. Whether you're talking Warrant Ultra, Anthem Max, or even just the straight Group 15s, you're going to spend less than $10 an acre. So it's no big deal. Darren mentioned return on investment. That's what we always have to be focused on. And we're not saying you have to use an early post soybean residual product, but we do want you to get that good pre-down. If you have a mess out there, you have lots of weeds, you know more weeds are going to be coming, you have lots of Roundup resistant weeds, that's when you use this early soybean residual post-emerge.
One thing to keep in mind too is the Group 15 portion of these residual herbicides, you're not going to get any burn down activity on the grass weeds that you're trying to get after or the small seeded broadleaves. However, you may burn the crop just a little bit, especially if you're putting it in a tank mix. We see these combination products heating things up a little bit on the crop, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes you see a little bit of leaf curling. May get a little more sunlight through the canopy to get that white mold held down in check a little bit too. I'm being facetious here. It doesn't really matter if that happens. I'm just worried about the weed control, and we are seeing a big step up in late season weed control.
The last thing that I'll say is I just really encourage you, if you're going to do this, do it very early post-emerge. If you wait and let things get big, now you're not going to have the same performance because we need some rain on these products to get the residual out of them. So get your pre on before you plant, or certainly before the soybeans emerge, then get these early post products on shortly thereafter.
We do typically see a good return on investment using post-emerge residual products in soybeans. One of the weeds you may be targeting is our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
At Harvest, you have one goal: finding the perfect flow of grain from the field to the bin. Case IH axial flow combines are engineered for matched capacity to deliver proven grain savings, so you can keep efficiency flowing smoothly. Find yours with the Case IH axial flow.
Find love, and then give it all away. Find love, then give it all away.
It's no secret that Mother Nature doesn't always cooperate with your schedule. Field conditions in recent years kept many from timely planting and fertilizing, and when you can't get your fertilizer applied, you lose thousands of dollars in yield potential. If you need flexibility in your fertility application timing, you need a drop tube system from C&R Supply. C&R drop tubes allow you to apply liquid nitrogen in season and place it exactly where your crop needs it. To learn more about low-cost C&R drop tube solutions, visit crsupply.com.
More choices, more money. With Bayer Plus Rewards, you choose from our broad portfolio of high-performance products. Earn more money on the eligible products that are right for your farm. And use our new portal to see your purchases, track your rewards, and decide how you want to use them. Visit mybayerplus.com to sign in and start earning. That's the advantage of more control in your hands. That's the plus.
Success isn't just about maintaining your operation, how you make out for the season, or how much you can get from each acre. It's about doing precisely what needs to be done to feed your crop and grow your legacy, all the way down to the last drop. AgroLiquid Precision Crop Nutrition. Apply less, expect more. Find a retailer at agroliquid.com.
Chances are you are doing soil testing on your farm, but are you doing plant tissue analysis? This is one of the things that will really help tie together everything in your farm, helping you understand which fertility products am I short of and which ones do I not need to add more of.
Plant tissue analysis is something we've been using on our own farm now for quite a few years, and we find many growers across the country also turning to plant tissue analysis to get these answers about where our crop's at in terms of nutrient content. However, we're seeing some shortfalls, and I hope this isn't the case for you, but we're seeing growers pull just one sample per year or maybe a couple per season, and we're also seeing growers not geo-reference where that sample is coming from by either putting a flag in the field or by GPS point. What we'd prefer to see is tissue samples taken on a regular basis throughout the growing season to really give us a full picture of what nutrients were short and when we ran out.
Let's make this real simple for you. Where we started with this whole tissue sampling thing on our own farm was almost 20 years ago, because it would get to the end of the season and my brother and my dad and I would sit around, we'd talk about, well, what do you think hurt us this year? What else do we need to do? And we always came back to, well, maybe we just need a little bit more nitrogen. If we just put more nitrogen on, we'd have more yield. So we'd put more nitrogen on, and how far did that get us? Nowhere. When we first started pulling tissue analysis, and what we do is we go out and pull it every Monday morning, and that first year, I can just tell you exactly how it turned out. Every single week when we got our analysis back, we were excessive on nitrogen, we were completely deficient on potassium, boron, and zinc. Week after week, and basically, here's how I took that as a farmer. I took it as, man, am I dumb. I was putting on the wrong things. I screwed it up myself. I could have had more yield if I simply had better management. And so what tissue analysis allowed us to do when we saw, hey, every week we're excessive on nitrogen, every week we're deficient on potassium, boron, and zinc, the next year we just took some of our nitrogen dollars, put them toward potassium, boron, and zinc, and what do you think magically happened to yield? Well, yield went up, we hadn't spent more money, so that means more profit. So all of a sudden, we looked smart. Well, were we any smarter than the year before? No, but we just had data to farm with. And that's the reason why we would encourage you, just do some tissue analysis. It's gonna help you so much. There are plenty of good guides out there. You can talk to agronomists in terms of when to pull the samples, where to pull the samples, but my recommendation is go out first thing every morning, same time of day, every single week, and do it from spots where you have soil tests. So now you can compare your soil tests to your plant tissue tests, match those things up and go, oh, this was missing in my soil test, I didn't know that. Or maybe you start figuring out, you know, my soil test says this, a lot of people say that's enough, but now I know it's not enough and I have to fertilize more with that nutrient. You're going to learn so much more by doing plant tissue analysis.
I do think it's important to geo-reference everything that you do in the field throughout the season, and plant tissue testing is certainly included, so you can see with every different thing that you're doing out there, whether it's drainage or whether it's planting and harvesting, you can always go back to those points and say, all right, I've got more nutrients there, maybe I could put more plant population, or I've got more yield in this spot, what's going on in my plants that's leading to that yield? So you don't end up like Brian was saying we used to on our farm, just all asking each other, what do we think happened here? And oftentimes coming back to the big things like the weather or nitrogen when they weren't even factors.
Yeah, but here's the whole thing. I mean, when you talk about georeferencing, I don't care about georeferencing. What I care about is, do I have a soil test in that spot? Because let's face it, I'm only going to pull tissue samples from maybe 2 or 3 at the most spots in a field, and I'm only going to take a few fields per year. So like on our farm, we might take 5 or 8 fields, and we've got 2 spots in those fields. So we're only talking 10 to 16 spots. That's it. And we're representing 3,000 acres of our whole farm. So you might say, oh, that doesn't sound good at all. But that's where, again, this has to tie back a little bit to the soil tests. So now when you have soil tests on all these acres and you're doing lots more grid points and it's lots easier and everything else, you can start to say, hey, this tissue level is correlating to these soil test levels, and now I need to either bump my soil levels, I could lower my soil levels a little bit, and start to learn a lot more there. The other thing that I'll throw out here is a lot of people say, well, I'm going to tissue test and then I'm going to foliar feed, or then I'm going to side dress. But our concern with that is by the time you're out there and you pull the sample, it gets sent to the lab, you get it back, you realize, ooh, I'm short on this thing. Your crop was already starting to run short on it probably 10 days ago to maybe 2 weeks ago. You've already lost some yield. So yes, you can do some foliar feeding. Yes, you can do some side dressing based on plant tissue analysis. But more than anything, you've got to refine your fertility program going into next year based on this year's tests.
A couple of common mistakes that we had made early on when we started pulling plant tissue tests on our farm is, number one, not washing off the leaves. Let's just say you were reasonably close to a gravel road and you had all that dust blowing from the road landing on the leaves, or just out in your field you had some dirt flying in the air and it landed on the leaves. Now all of a sudden you've got a mess, and you're going to get a soil sample basically by sending in a tissue sample. Or if, like Brian was mentioning, you just had sprayed that field with boron or iron or some nutrient, and all of a sudden your tests come back with really high concentrations of that nutrient you just sprayed. By washing off the leaves, you can take away all of that, or most of it anyway, and get better quality samples. The other thing is just not documenting exactly what growth stage we're at, or not correctly identifying the growth stages. depending on who's pulling those samples for your farm, make sure they know how to identify, hey, is this corn at V5 or is this corn at V7? Because that may make a difference in the analysis of that leaf tissue sample.
The other thing I would say is make sure you use a paper bag to send your samples in, not a plastic bag. By the time it arrives at the lab, sent in a plastic bag, it's going to be manure and the lab isn't going to be able to tell you a whole lot. So once again, we really do encourage you, use some plant tissue analysis on your farm. If it was me and I'd never done it before, here is what I would suggest. I would say just take one field for this year. Take 2 spots, a good area and a bad area, and have soil tests in those exact spots. Then I would go out as soon as that corn emerges, as soon as the beans emerge, as soon as the wheat emerges, and do it all season long, at least for 10 to 12 weeks. Now, with soybeans, a lot of times we don't start for the first 3 or 4 weeks. We usually don't learn a whole lot early, but just to keep things simple for you, I'd say start right away, do it in these 2 spots, do it at the same time on the same day every week. I prefer Monday morning, let's say 8 a.m., and just go do it. And by the time you get to the end of the season, you're gonna have all this data, you're gonna be able to graph it out, chart it out, whatever, and you will quickly see, oh, I'm really short on this nutrient, or oh, I'm excessive on this nutrient. You will help fine-tune your fertility program. It's gonna make you money in the future.
While you're out there pulling those leaf samples, you should be looking for our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to stop it coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is brought to you by Corteva Agriscience, Agriculture Division of Dow DuPont. Finish the fight against tough weeds with the Enlist Weed Control System.
Weeds are tough, but we're tougher. With unrivaled weed control, reduced drift, and near zero volatility. So, who's tough now?
Our Weed of the Week is Venus mallow.
Brian, this is a pretty little weed that has a nice flower on it. I love how Venus mallow
hate
looks
when he talks about
when it's
pretty
in
weeds.
Brian's field, not in mine. I don't want to see Venus mallow.
You know,
but
where we started seeing this is on the edges of fields,
Yes,
too, where we didn't have good crop canopy.
where I often see it, not only poor canopy, but compaction. When you look at right inside the field approaches, a lot of times that ground is firm because you've driven equipment in and out of there all through the season. Venus mallow tends to do fairly well in these compacted areas, so watch for it. It looks like this pretty flower, like I mentioned, but when you look at the plant when it's smaller, it has one leaf that's going to have some lobes to it, another leaf that looks kind of like a velvet leaf when it's very, very small. And when you see that, just know, hey, I'm looking at something different here. It looks a lot like Venus mallow.
So Darren mentioned velvet leaf. I often think about Venus mallow very much like velvet leaf. A lot of the same products will work on both weeds. So let's start with corn. Darren, what do you suggest we put down pre-emerge?
Well, in corn, none of the pre-emerge straight grass herbicides, the group 15s, are great on Venus mallow, but when you use some of those combination products, like for example, Triple Flex or Sure Start, well then you've got some Python in there, and Python is really pretty good on velvet leaf. So I like them as good starters in the corn program.
Yep, Verdict is pretty good pre-emerge too. Post-emerge, we do run into some issues sometimes with dicamba, even with Roundup. You gotta have a good strong rate, I would say. So HPPD plus a little bit of atrazine is probably the way to go.
All right, in soybeans, if you can use some Python pre, that's awesome. Otherwise, just use our normal 3 pre program. It's gonna do an okay job on Venus mallow. And then post-emerge, if you've got Roundup, Liberty, dicamba, 2,4-D, all those specific options for the crops they go with, they all work fine. Otherwise, I do like Pursuit with some Flex Star. That would be my conventional option.
All right, in small grain, we don't typically have a lot of issue with this particular weed because there is better crop canopy most of the time. But let's say you had wheat, I'd probably start with Sharpen, follow post-emerge with Husky.
That's all the time we have for our Weed of the Week, Venus mallow, but Iron Talk is coming up next.
How much does your crop residue cost you? Over time, residue accumulates in your fields, building excess carbon levels and tying up your plant available nitrogen. Residue also traps P, K, and microbes and can take years to naturally become available to your crops. This is because soil lacks the diverse microbial life needed to break it all down. With decomp, you can naturally restore life to your soil and allow the release of valuable crop fertility. Learn more about decomp at eggbio.solutions.
Where we have run the Soil Warrior, we have harvested the best corn we have ever harvested in the history of Renwood Farms. Now, I'm kind of always wanting to push the envelope to see what else I can do to help enhance that emergence. Their ride is so much smoother. Their seed placement is even better. Where we had our best emergence and we've had our best yields was where we ran the Soil Warrior.
Find love, and then give it all away. Find love, then give it all away.
More choices, more money. With Bayer Plus Rewards, you choose from our broad portfolio of high-performance products. Earn more money on the eligible products that are right for your farm. And use our new portal to see your purchases, track your rewards, and decide how you want to use them. Visit mybayerplus.com to sign in and start earning. That's the advantage of more control in your hands. That's the plus.
Success isn't just about maintaining your operation, how you make out for the season, or how much you can get from each acre. It's about doing precisely what needs to be done to feed your crop and grow your legacy, all the way down to the last drop. AgroLiquid Precision Crop Nutrition. Apply less, expect more. Find a retailer at agroliquid.com.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
At Harvest, you have one goal: finding the perfect flow of grain from the field to the bin. Case IH axial flow combines are engineered for matched capacity to deliver proven grain savings, so you can keep efficiency flowing smoothly. Find yours with the Case IH axial flow.
How much difference is there in field cultivator sweeps? I ran a test on our farm this year that I'll discuss on today's Iron Talk. My brother is the skeptical one. He always wants to see the proof. Well, I'm generally ready to jump on new technology that could give our farm the edge. So when I wanted to look at some higher quality field cultivator sweeps this year, there's only one way to prove it to myself and to my brother how well they worked. We split our TigerMate field cultivator to find out. Half our machine is set up with Case IH's earth metal sweeps and the other half with conventional sweeps. Now, earth metal sweeps are made with a special alloy steel and are heat treated to prevent brittleness, loss of elasticity, and to withstand rocks much better. They cost a little more, but if they last longer and they're stronger than the conventional sweeps, it would easily be worth it. Our test this year didn't include many rocks. We just don't have too many of them on our farm. However, soil conditions allowed us to cruise through 850 acres in no time, bringing to light a stark difference in wear amongst our sweeps. I was blown away with the reduction in wear on the earth metal sweeps compared to the conventional ones. I was expecting about 20% less wear, but it looks like quite a bit more than that to me in our soils. While the conventional sweeps were able to keep most of their width, you'd have to run considerably deeper to get the job done after just a few hundred acres, though. We'll also need to replace the conventional sweeps much sooner, making their operation costs higher per acre than using the earth metal sweeps. The best part of this comparison is I convinced Brian that we need to run the premium sweeps on our farm. I still have a couple of more upgrades I'd like to get him excited about too, but I'll take this win today. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but if you're looking for some more agronomic information this week, we'd encourage you to check out the Ag PhD radio show. It's on Rural Radio, that's Sirius XM 147 at 2 p.m. Central each weekday.
And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. We'll have another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.